Hello. Hello. Welcome to the Soul Elevation podcast, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I'm excited to be with you here today. I want to talk about something that I brought up maybe 2 weeks ago or so. I did another live that talked about conspiracies. And if we think about the role of conspiracies, we might begin with the sort of mainstream mentality that um, sorry, bear with me. You know how this goes. I have technical things that I'm always struggling with when I go live. Sorry. Um, so we might begin any sort of conspiracy um, uh, research, or when we come across a conspiracy. I know for me personally, it takes me a little while before it starts to make sense and I start to understand how it could be true and how, it usually, if you follow the breadcrumbs, a lot of times it turns out that there's very viable evidence to support these conspiracies, even though they seem so crazy. So but what can happen is that when we go deep into conspiracies, our agency can become kind of hijacked by the conspiracy itself. And in some respects, there are actually psychological operations where that is the point. That's the goal, is to kind of capture your energy, capture your attention. You think you're doing something to kind of free yourself, but you're actually getting tangled up, and your energy is getting tangled and tied up in this conspiracy. And that works to benefit the powers that be. So it's very complicated, it's very convoluted, and we do want to be careful as we um, spend our energy in that way. That doesn't mean that the conspiracies aren't true. So I explore that in a different live stream, and I'll link that into the show notes once I'm finished recording. But what I want to talk about today is the empowerment piece. Because what can happen is, as we realize that the main message behind a lot of these conspiracies is what you think is real is not real. There is an illusion to life, and there are people pulling the strings, and it's really not to our benefit. The way that these strings are being pulled, the orchestration, the illusion is to our detriment. It's to somebody else's gain. And that can make you feel disempowered. That can make you feel like the deck is stacked against you and there's no hope. And that is a really hard place to be in. So, for one thing, if you're in that, you know, pay attention to what you're feeding yourself. What information, what rabbit holes are you going down? And is it really doing you good? The other piece to it is that it's not, I don't want to say like turn your back against all conspiracies because you're going to go down this dark hole. It's own your agency, be your own guardian, and go in with your eyes open and know that you might need to regulate. You might need to self regulate. You may need to be very mindful about your consumption. But there is hope regardless of what you uncover. So I want to give one example of what has for a long time been considered conspiracy are chemtrails. Chemtrails are these basically spraying the sky with planes spraying the sky um, with toxins, with aluminum, with things that that God didn't give us in our environment. It's not helping us. And it is, there are different theories about why. So, and what's interesting is that it's starting to come to light in the mainstream. They're calling it weather control or weather modification. So it's starting to drip into the mainstream, and they're trying to spin it in a way that makes it seem that it is for humanity's benefit to keep the planet cool. Um, I will let you determine for yourself what makes sense to you. For me personally, I don't buy that. I don't think that it's for humanity's benefit. I think that that is a psychological um, spin on it to try to get away from it. You know, if they started by trying to call it a conspiracy, people were crazy if they talked about it, if they thought that it was true. Now it's like, well, okay, well, yeah, it might be true, but we're actually doing it to save you. But you don't get to decide, you don't get to vote on whether it's true. Sorry, you don't get to vote on whether you want this. We're not going to give you informed consent, but we're going to do it and we're going to protect you because we have your best interest at heart. Don't think about it. Just let us do what we want to do and don't worry about it. So that's an interesting development. But if we think about chemtrails, let's use this as an example. You go down the rabbit hole of chemtrails and you come out feeling like enraged that this is happening and powerless. You feel powerless because what the heck are you going to do about it? Unless you are in a position there, I mean, there are, God love them, there are whistleblowers out there who are saying, I have directly been ordered to do this, or I was hired to do this, or whatever it is. There are people who are coming clean. They are ruined. They're having their reputations ruined. They're, you know, I imagine they're under attack for trying to shine the truth, which is in and of itself, you know, that's a big smoking gun there. Um, but as an individual, if we're just a private citizen and we don't get to vote on this, we don't even know who's behind it. They're so powerful with so much, you know, they seem to have so many resources at their disposal that we don't have. So we just have to take it. That's a really hard place to be as a private citizen, as an individual. But there are other ways to think about this. And you as a consciousness, as a human who has an awakened consciousness, you are incredibly powerful. So if you just focus on the highest good, you focus on the future that you envision that is for your highest good and the highest good of all, then you let the universe work out the details. So I know that I've mentioned this before, but maybe this is the first time you're watching, but I created recently a meditation that is I think I call it the New Earth meditation. And the drive behind this is to get yourself into stillness for 12 minutes and listen to this audio guided meditation. And it's going to use your power of visualization, your power of your creative powers to envision clear skies, clean water, abundant life, healthy life. It's going to call in this future state that is for humanity's highest good. And then you are using your consciousness, which is incredibly powerful. You're using visualization to utilize your consciousness to crystallize this higher good and pull it in to this reality. And then the more people who download this and use it, not just download it, but use it regularly, we're all dialing into this future state and pulling it in. And we're letting the universe rearrange itself to create that reality. And so, what does that look like behind the scenes? Who knows? That is for reality to determine. So, it may be here are some ways that this might manifest between right now where we are, where we feel that we don't have any agency to be able to stop chemtrails, and this future where they don't exist. Here are some possibilities of things that might come forward. One, yeah, it might turn out that the people who are behind this get arrested, or they flip their consciousness, or they all die or something. But it might be that the actual cause of this problem, they no longer have the power to do that. Maybe there's widespread exposure, they go to jail, it becomes illegal. So that would be some sort of governance where the government or the legal system somehow gets involved and stops this. That's possible. But it's not the only way. It may also be that it stops working. So they're spraying this in the sky, but because of consciousness, it doesn't have any effect anymore. Maybe there is some sort of atmospheric change to do with solar flares, to do with the electromagnetics of the planet, but something that looks mysterious to us that we haven't, that humanity hasn't necessarily tried to counter it in the physical realm, but we actually notice, wow, what used to make it into our atmosphere that we were breathing and was landing on our skin and all of these things, it's no longer getting to us because there is suddenly this protective barrier that it can't penetrate. That is possible. It would look to us like a miracle, but I believe that, what would happen is science somewhere down the line realizes, oh, this level of solar plasma that was entering into the planet created this barrier that was, hundreds of feet above the surface of the earth, and the chemtrails, the result of the chemtrails could no longer penetrate beyond that barrier. I'm completely making that up, but that could be a solution that is would look like a miracle, but because of our intention, we've called forth. It could also be that some, independent independent scientists create these individual solutions, and they go on the market. And so the crazy people who are worried about chemtrails are suddenly have things to protect them. They have things that they can, there is some like protective energy spray. Again, I'm just totally making it up and it sounds crazy as I'm saying it, when we don't have these sorts of technology, but how quickly do these things come to light as we create and shift our perspective? We create new realities all the time. So it could be, maybe it's a pendant that we wear and it amplifies our energy protection, and any sort of pollution in the environment can't penetrate our energy. I mean, that really is what happens with your aura as you strengthen your energy field, as you do things like breath work and meditation, and you change your diet, and you literally strengthen your energy field, and you create this energetic protection around you. So maybe there is some sort of technology that amplifies our resistance at the individual level, and pets have them, and your property can have it. There actually are people who are creating these, like, there are homemade things. I don't know a lot about them, but with resin, where like different crystals and metals and things are encased in resin, and people are just kind of using them around their property and things like that. And it is creating this like energy barrier. There are these warriors who are doing this, which I just love. They're behind the scenes, working invisibly for the good of humanity. And that could take off like wildfire. And then it stops, right? Like this if it's not getting any results and the data says that this is not actually changing our environment the way that it used to, for what reason would they continue doing this? It doesn't get them anywhere. And even if they do keep doing it, nothing is happening. So those are just some ways that these solutions can come forth because we're calling in that the sky is healthy, that the air is pure, that this behavior stops because we do not consent. And so I want you to think about that and get into your sovereignty, get into your liberation, your creative power. Don't forget that is so critical that you understand how powerful you are. And so, whether it's the powers that be who are doing these types of things to, if you want to say enslave us, however we want to look at it, however that idea is sold to us, but that's not the ultimate truth. No matter what is happening outside of there, it's all about you waking up to your own sovereignty and your own power. So you have that agency, and it's up to you to explore that. Those are the rabbit holes to go down, because that is what's really going to get you to step into your ascension, to step into the power, really embody the fullness of who you are. So this is something that this is the purpose behind an upcoming workshop that I have. It's actually next Thursday, the 29th at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make it live, you're going to have lifetime access to the recording. But we're going to talk about that sovereignty. This is critical. This is the most important part of your ascension. If you're on an ascension journey, you're on a journey of sovereignty. And so I'm going to talk to you about things to do. I'm going to talk to you about how your sovereignty is, how you don't have, what's getting in the way of your sovereignty, your liberation, and give you tools so that you can come in to that freedom. So I will put the link to that. You can find it on karagoodwin.com under Energy Reset Workshop. Please join me. It's very, very reasonably priced. It also helps me offset a lot of the costs. I have a lot of costs with these free transmissions that I give. So if you not only want to help yourself, but you want to help me be able to have more resources to help you and help others, I would be so grateful for you to join and let that be a win-win. So thank you so much for being here and tuning in, and I wish you many, many blessings. Have a beautiful day.